Hey, it's Michele here, heading back to some nutrition basics. Today we're going to talk about all those annoying politically correct things that we say, and I'm going to call them lies about nutrition. Welcome to the Cut the Stress Show, formerly the I Cut the Mustard Show, where you'll learn how to stop stressing, stop stress eating, and finally create the body that you can enjoy forever. If you're ready to lighten up, pun intended, then you're in the right place because you shouldn't have to hate creating the body that you love. Woo-hoo-hoo, this is a good one. I just feel like rubbing my hands. Let's get into it today. I just came up with a list of some of the most common things that I hear people say over and over again about nutrition, about food, and our relationship with food. And it was becoming quite a long list. So I just narrowed it down to the top 4 that I hear a lot that I feel like are the most detrimental to us as well. And the funny thing is that they're actually very politically correct. They're things that we say to each other whenever we're trying to relate to one another or like trying to be understanding and empathetic. But I just wanted to debunk some of those right now. So we're just going to get into it, starting with number 1. Nutrition is so complicated, right? I hear this all the time, and I believed this one for so long. Nutrition is so complicated. Actually, I was laughing whenever I wrote my gluten-free cookbook back in 2013. I wrote in the book, "This book does not claim to offer comprehensive nutritional advice. Frankly, that is a complicated arena that I don't want to step into." Which I think that's funny for several reasons. I mean, look at me now. I'm talking about nutrition all the time. So it's kind of funny that I was so scared of it back then, but really fun to see that whenever you understand it, it really isn't that complicated anymore. So why do we think nutrition is complicated? It's because of the social media and media in general. There's a lot of misinformation out there. And whenever we listen to the news, they're going to tell us some cool stuff that's edgy or contradictory. That's what they like to report on because that's what people listen to. So that's what they keep reporting on. But things that we hear on the news or just amongst each other aren't necessarily true. And they tend to make nutrition feel really, really complicated. So we're going to go over some of the truth later, but just kind of debunking that nutrition isn't complicated. It just seems complicated because we're making it that way. But once you learn the facts about it, then it's actually quite simple. The second lie that I hear people say all the time is moderation in all things, right? Balance. As long as you're moderate in all things, as long as you're not going crazy, then you're going to be fine. You're going to be healthy. Right? And so we think that that's true, that as long as we don't go too far. But that one's just such a tricky one because what is too far? And moderation means something different for different people. And it means something different for each food. Like being moderate in vegetables, like we should eat vegetables moderately. Like that doesn't really make sense. Like you can't really have too many vegetables. It's hard to overeat on vegetables and you don't want to like keep those in moderation. You don't have to limit those in any way, right? So for vegetables, there really is no moderation that has to happen usually. But for other foods like sugar, then there's a lot of moderation that has to happen. Moderation for sugar is like, 0, right? Because here's the thing about addictive processed foods. Foods like sugar and processed flour and oils, they mess with our senses. So there's absolutely no way that we can moderate them. I was reading this great book that sometimes I reference called The Hungry Brain, but it's a lot of research that he put together about neuroscience and how the brain interacts with food and things like that. And in there, he's talking about satiety and how you just don't feel satisfied like with those kind of foods. So there's certain foods where you feel very full, you feel satisfied, and you feel full for a long time. And there's other foods where it takes a lot more calories to feel full. And this is like a tongue twister. It takes more calories to feel full, and then you don't feel full as long. So foods that keep you satiated are the foods that are high in fiber, like potatoes, vegetables, whole grains. Those keep you feeling full for a really long time. And then foods that are highly processed, like sugar, processed flours, salts, those you don't feel as full as quickly. So that's why you can eat that whole entire pizza, but you can only have like 1 cup of brown rice, right? And that's why you want to keep eating in about 2 hours, because you don't feel full as long. So moderation, it just doesn't work very well whenever it comes to those kind of foods, because your body isn't designed to moderate those kind of foods. It's tricking. They're tricky. They're tricksy. Okay. So number 1 was nutrition is so complicated. Number 2, moderation in all things. Number 3 that I hear a lot is anything can cause cancer, right? If you eat too much broccoli, it will cause cancer. That I feel like this is such a politically correct thing, right? Whenever we hear studies about some kind of cancer research that tells us that certain things that we like to do cause cancer, then we kind of minimize it by saying, oh, well, again, moderation in all things. And if you have too much of anything, that can cause cancer. So then we go to broccoli. Like if we had too much of that, it would cause cancer, which I don't have any research to state the opposite necessarily, but all of the research that I have read about broccoli, number 1, is the best. It's ranked like the best, most powerful food that you can eat. It's the most powerful anti-cancer food that you can eat. So it has anti-cancer properties, as do all of the fruits and vegetables have properties in them that build your body, that repair your body, and make it so that you don't get cancer because it's constantly repairing. So I find it hard to believe that eating too much broccoli is going to cause cancer just because it has so many anti-cancer properties. So that's number 1. Number 2, have you ever heard of anyone eating too much broccoli? I, for one, find it hard to eat more than like half a cup of broccoli because it is just so satiating. Going back to that word, I feel so full. I can't even hardly eat more than a cup. And if I stuffed myself full, let's pretend that I could manage to get down a bag of broccoli every day for weeks and weeks. I just don't think it's possible to overeat on broccoli. I don't think it's possible that broccoli is going to cause cancer. And if it does, it's probably because it's laced with something else, in which case that other thing is causing the cancer, like the pesticides or something, and not the broccoli. So I'm just putting that out there. that is just a politically correct thing that we say, but it's not actually true. So while we're on that, I was just thinking about grains. Like grains get a really bad rep lately. They are just getting thrown in with carbs. Carbs are bad. Grains are bad. So I was just thinking about this and I thought, you know what? I don't think I've ever read a study that said grains are bad, that said grains have been correlated with cancer. Like I've never seen that before. The only thing that I can think of that comes close is rice and how that it can be like laced with cyanide because of some crazy stuff in the soil. So sometimes we get a little bit scared of that. But then again, it's not really the rice that's causing the cancer. It's this random cyanide that happened to be in the soil. So I have never seen a study that says rice can cause cancer or vegetables cause cancer. And on the flip side, I have seen several studies that say that meat, dairy, processed foods are like sugar are correlated with higher rates of disease and cancer. But all of the studies that I see are correlating vegetables with lower rates of those. And they've been shown that vegetables and whole grains and beans have lots of anti-cancer properties there. So I think we've debunked that one. All right. So the fourth one that I wanted to touch on is I eat pretty healthy, right? As a health coach, I hear this one all the time. Like we are stuck in confusion. I don't know what's wrong. I mean, I eat pretty healthy. I don't know why I'm not losing this weight. Everybody thinks that they eat pretty healthy. I'm just going to throw that out there and let you know that most people think that they're eating pretty healthy. And this is why. I don't know if I've shared this on the podcast yet, but again, from that book, The Hungry Brain by this PhD, Stephen Gugnier. I'm going to say that wrong. He lists the top 6 sources of calories in the American diet. And they are, drum roll please, the top source of calories is grain-based desserts. So we're getting most of our calories from grain-based desserts, from chicken, from bread, from sweetened drinks like sodas and alcohol and pizza. Okay? So if we look at that lineup that says Americans on average get most of their calories from processed foods. They get most of their calories from desserts, breads, which is made out of flour, pizza, which is made out of flour and it's got a bunch of cheese on it, right? And then drinks like soda and alcohol. And then you've got chicken, which includes chicken fingers in there, right? So if you look at that diet, then you probably are eating pretty healthy compared to what everybody else is eating, right? So I would say, yes, maybe that's not a lie that you're telling yourself. Maybe you are eating pretty healthy, right? But it's also true that you're eating pretty unhealthy a lot of times, right? Or you could be eating pretty unhealthy. So you might have taken a step towards healthy, which is awesome. And I applaud every single step, by the way, because I think any step that you take away from what I just described is going to show you some major results. Even 1 cup of strawberries at each meal is going to just inside. I don't know if you're going to be able to tell outside, but they've shown that inside it's making a huge difference, right? So every step that you can take away from only processed foods in your diet is going to be awesome. So do that. But what I'm trying to say here is that telling yourself I eat pretty healthy when you're actually not is the thing that you want to watch out for. And part of the problem, honestly, is not your fault at all, because again, nutrition is confusing. We've been bombarded with this misinformation for so long that what the average American thinks is pretty healthy is not healthy. So then they're following the guidelines of what the My Plate says. And I'm eating meat. I'm getting my protein at every meal. I'm getting my 4 servings of milk or 3 servings of milk that I'm supposed to eat every day. And I'm eating my grains. And I don't always get the vegetables in there, but I feel like I'm doing pretty good because I've got part of the plate, right? So that's what I see a lot of people. That's the thought process that a lot of people are having, right? So they have, number 1, it's not your fault because you've got this standard that isn't actually healthy. The other problem is that we as Americans are so unhealthy that any step towards healthy is pretty healthy. Does that make any sense? But the cool thing is what I try to help people and encourage you to do is just keep taking those steps to healthier, to less processed foods, to eating more vegetables and whole grains and beans and all the wonderful anti-cancer things that we know are going to increase your longevity and help you have energy and really live the life that you're wanting to live. So my question to you then is, why does it matter? Why does it matter that we've got these politically correct statements that we say to each other? Why does it matter that we're kind of lying to ourselves about these things? And I want to respond that it matters because it keeps us blind. It keeps us stuck in confusion and misinformation, and it keeps us from moving forward. Essentially, we're just coddling ourselves with these things, right? And I've said them before whenever I'm talking to people that I don't really want to get into it. I know that we have completely opposite views, and I'm just like, well, yep, it's complicated because it is. That's true in some ways, right? Or, moderation. Yeah, that's true in some ways. I don't usually say that one because that one really bothers me. But so, sometimes we use these, but if you really believe them, then it keeps you stuck because it keeps you stuck in that realm of feeling like it's too hard, it's out of your control, and I don't know space. That's like the worst space to be in whenever you feel like, I don't know, I'm confused, it's too hard, it's not my fault. That's all disempowering. And therefore, you cannot move forward and make progress on your goals whenever you're in that place of disempowerment. So what we want to do is shift you to a place of empowerment, because we've figured out in some ways that it's not your fault. There's a lot of misinformation out there. There is a lot of confusion in media. And even when you go online, when you're researching anything, right? If you go online, you're going to see the opposite opinion. If you pick a topic and write it in there, you can find opposing opinions just like that. So it makes sense that it is confusing. And in that way, I'm saying that it's not your fault, because in order for you not to be confused, you've got to really go out there and you've got to be researching. You've got to be in the trenches. And I realize that's not everybody's favorite thing to think about. I know I personally am in the dark about a lot of things. Like, I haven't taken the time to research where my clothes come from or who makes them or things like that. And in that way, I have absolutely no idea what's going on. And therefore, I wouldn't know. I'm just staying in confusion because I haven't gone and done the research. So it's not your fault because there's confusion, but it's also your fault, which is the good news, right? Whenever I just gave that example about me not knowing where my clothes come from, that's my own fault. I haven't gone out and researched it, and I know it. So I don't have any problem saying that I know it's my fault that I don't know and that I haven't done anything about it, because I've chosen to stay into this realm of not knowing, which is totally fine. If that's where you want to stay, that's totally fine. But if you're interested in losing weight, if you're interested in healing your body and creating the life of your dreams, and you really want it and you're trying, then staying in the realm of confusion is not going to work for you, right? So in that case, it is your fault that you're confused, but that's the good news because it means that it's also in your power. If it's your fault, then you have control over it. So another way to think about it is that you are in charge of your own results, right? So we don't like to be told that it's our fault, but I am in charge of my own results. I created my own results. And right now I'm creating the result of being stuck. I'm creating the result of not knowing what's going on. And I can change that, and I can learn, and I can move forward. And the cool thing is that it's not complicated. It's not hard. And you don't have to stay in that place of being stuck. You just have to be really willing to humble yourself and say, you know what? It's my fault that I don't know, right? It's my fault that I don't know. It's my fault that I haven't really thought about it before. And now I want to think about it. So those are the lies. And it's important that we recognize them and we try to counter them so that we can get out of the realm of I don't know and stuck and move forward in our health and lifestyle goals. So I'm going to give you some truths to replace these with. And I think the funnest and easiest way is this quote by Michael Pollan that I really love. He says, "Eat food, not too much, mostly plants." That is his equation for nutrition. And if you aren't familiar with Michael Pollan, he is a journalist that just got really interested in nutrition, and he was confused as well. What are the real facts out there? So he kind of digs in, just being a journalist, kind of digs into some of the research and comes up with his own book and things about what he felt like what he got from the research was the best diet, right? But I just love the way that he sums it up, because I think it says it in a way that most diet plans, most nutritionists can agree on, because that's what we're kind of looking for anyway. We're looking for a middle ground that we can be politically correct on. So if you find yourself in this situation where you want to be politically correct and just kind of skirt the situation, I think everybody agrees with this. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. So let's go through these. Number 1, eat food. By that, he means eat real food, eat whole foods, eat foods that come from the ground, that come from nature. And I don't believe he is plant-based, but he does understand that we're the healthiest when we eat the most whole foods. So whole foods, what does that mean? I kind of take it for granted. I keep throwing these around, whole foods, processed foods, but sometimes we just don't really know what those words mean. So I'm just going to define it for you real quick as a recap for many of you. But whole foods just means that it's coming closest to nature as possible. So how many steps, you can think about it this way. How many steps did it take from the wild or from the garden to get to your table? And the least amount of steps means that it's more of a whole food. And the more amount of steps means that it's less of a whole food. It's more processed. So let me give you some examples. Obviously, fruits and vegetables just right out of the garden in that plain form, that is a whole food. But even whenever I just chop them up and cook them, that's a whole food also. Like, I haven't really done much to them, and I'm still getting a lot of the benefits out of them. And depending on the vegetable, maybe you're getting a little more benefits when you cook them. So that's the whole food. But whenever I start to process those things, let's take oats, for example. They come from a field. They grow in a field like a tall grass, and then you bring them in, and back in the old days, you've got to thresh them, you're beating them, and you're winnowing, and all of those words that maybe we don't really know what they mean anymore. But you take the grain, and you've got to get the skin off of it, the really hard skin that you can't chew, and then a lot of grains, that's it. You take the really hard hull off, and then you cook it and you eat it after you soak it, usually. But then for oats, a lot of times we eat rolled oats. So that's the next best thing. So you've got steel cut oats, which is they just took the hull off, they cut it into smaller chunks, and they're selling it to you. That's the raw form. That's the whole. The whole and the whole. And then the next thing that we like to do with oats is make rolled oats, right? A lot of tongue twisters I'm doing today. All right, so rolled oats, where they just steam them kind of and they roll them through some sort of press. I don't know all the details, but they're rolling them literally. That's why it's called rolled oats. So they're slightly cooked or steamed, and then they're rolled. So thick rolled oats would be taking a step closer to processed foods, but they're still pretty much a whole food. And then as we progress towards more towards rolled oats, they have a million different words. Like there's thick rolled oats or traditional, or then there's rolled oats, and then there's quick rolled oats, and then there's super quick oats or something. So the idea is the quicker they get, the more that they're smashing them down and processing them and almost making them into powder, so that whenever you buy the little package of oatmeal that has all the sugar in it that you rip open and you put in your bowl, it's so flat and smushed, it doesn't even really look like the oat that it looked like originally, right? It's so smashed down and processed that oat, whenever it enters into your body, it's just converted really quickly into sugar. So that's kind of the process, going from the most whole food versus the most processed food. I guess one more step further would be oat flour, right? Because we just grinded it up even more. So as close as you can get to the farm or the wild, that's going to be the best for you, because nature packages everything in its own perfect little package. And like bananas, for example, or apple, right? The apple, it has the skin, it has the fiber, it has the sugar that makes it taste sweet, but you've got to chew it, and it's got everything inside of it so that you feel full faster. Like, how many apples can you really eat? If you've ever gone to an apple orchard and picked apples, I feel totally stuffed after like 2 apples. So you can't eat too many. But if you take it and you juice it down and take all the fiber out, then it's a really high in sugar, and you can just drink 3 or 4 apples, no sweat, right? So that's what I was talking about earlier with your body just isn't designed to understand those highly processed foods. It's like skipping that trigger in your brain. It's tricking your body into eating more than you would have. So the closer that you can get to whole, unprocessed foods, the better you are going to be. So going into the next phrase. So he said, eat food, like we talked about. He's meaning real food, plants, not something that's made in a laboratory or super processed. And then not too much. So if you do number 1, eating whole foods, then it's pretty much taking care of the number 2 truth, which is don't eat too much. So it's really hard, like I said, to overeat whole foods because they come in this perfect package that's got fiber and other things, and it signals our body that we're getting full. But whenever we highly process it, then it skips that, right? And we often overindulge. But even whenever you switch to all whole foods, you may still struggle with this. And that's okay. I honestly struggle too. I still struggle. I get to a place where I feel like I'm not overeating anymore, and then I backslide a little bit, but I'm still eating mostly whole foods. So whenever I overeat on a bowl of oatmeal, that's just a couple hundred calories versus eating 3 Twinkies, which might be closer to 1,000 calories, right? I don't know. I don't have my calorie counter with me, but that your tendency to indulge is a lot less. And when you overindulge, you're not going to indulge too much. So if you could do number 1, number 2 is pretty good to go. And then number 3 is to eat mostly plants, which, man, I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over in this podcast, but plants are awesome and they are packaged perfectly. And the reason that they're awesome is because they have so many properties to keep us healthy. They feed our good gut bacteria with that fiber, and they fill us up to tell us that we're full. They give us the nutrients and the minerals that we need. And they've got those phytochemicals, those anti-cancer properties, those healing properties also, that we know as antioxidants. So they just have everything in them that's so perfect. So plants are amazing, and they feed animals. So whenever we eat animals, we're just eating the plants, we're getting the nutrients through the animal that they got from the plants. So we can skip the middleman if we want to, which tends to be healthier for us because, like I said, meat and dairy are correlated with cancer and in lots and lots of studies. So plants, eat mostly plants, and you'll be all good. So one last little analogy for this one, and then we'll sign off for today. But I was just talking to my daughter again because as the kids grow older, they understand concepts a little bit in a different way. So they were asking me again, her friend had said that she eats really healthy. And she said, I eat meat, I eat dairy, I eat my grains, and I eat my vegetables. So my daughter we were talking to my daughter about this because she's like, hey mom, you say that meat and dairy is not good, but everybody thinks it's good. What's up with that? So we're explaining it again. And for her and for them, I like to use the analogy of a dirty bedroom. And this is, your body is a dirty bedroom. I don't know. This is making sense, I promise. But for the kids, I say, it's like cleaning up your bedroom or keeping your bedroom clean. Let's say that your room is a bedroom. Okay. And so if you want to keep your bedroom clean, then you want to put good stuff in it and keep it all tidy. And if you're trying to clean your room and keep it clean, and, I keep throwing junk in it and trash that you can't really use or you don't need, then it makes it really hard to keep your room clean. So this is like whenever you're eating processed foods and non-foods like colors and things, you're throwing a bunch of junk into your body that your body doesn't really need. And it's hard for your body to keep up with that and keep it clean and looking nice and running properly. But if you're eating lots of fruits and vegetables and whole grains like we talked about, I mentioned that's like someone coming in with maybe some boxes to help you organize things, or it's like little helpers coming in to help you clean up your stuff. It's the vacuum cleaner, right? So these are the exact opposite of dumping trash in. They're not only giving you the things, they're not only not bothering your body, but they're giving you the things that your body needs to heal itself and to be healthy and wonderful. So all of that, I'm just dumping every nutrition lesson onto you. But seeing it in that light, I think makes it all so much easier, right? It's not confusing. It's not overwhelming. You don't have to worry about moderation in all things. We're kind of understanding why that doesn't work. And as long as you eat food, real whole foods, not too much, and mostly plants, then you're good. And whenever we're having conversations with people who aren't plant-based, with people who don't understand or believe the same things that we do about nutrition, I feel like these are really the things that we can still agree on. Everybody agrees that vegetables are awesome and fruits are awesome. Almost. And everybody believes that we shouldn't be overindulging, right? We can all agree on that. And we can all agree, most of us in the nutrition world can agree that whole foods are the best foods. So let's rally around those things. Let's start there and step out of confusion and start there and keep moving more towards whole foods, unprocessed foods, not too much, mostly plants. So my last thing to say on this is that if you are doing these things and you're not getting results, that's a great time to get coaching. So if you're doing all of these things, if you're eating mostly plants, you're eating whole foods, not too much, and you're still not losing weight, you're still not getting the results that you need, that's the perfect time to get coaching, because that means that it's just not food. The food isn't the thing that's keeping you stuck. It's something else. It's stress, it's exercise maybe, it's social connections, it's something else that's going on. So that's a great time to get coaching to figure out what's the missing piece. And another great time is whenever you want to do it, you know what to do, but you just can't get yourself to do it. You don't know how to get yourself to do it, and you keep falling into the same bad habits every time. That's the perfect time to get coaching as well, because coaches are there to help you make habit change actually happen, to make it stick long term. So even when we know this, there's a total difference between what we know we're supposed to do and actually doing what we're supposed to do. And that's where coaching comes in. That's why I love it so much. That's why I love working with people, because when that mindset shift happens, then it's easy, and they're like, I don't know, my life is just fabulous now. I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. I just lost 5 pounds in 1 week, even though I was struggling for months, So it just it turns the key and unlocks your potential in a way that I just haven't seen in any other realm. And it's just so thrilling and exciting. So if you want to come work with me, test it out, I've got a free 15-minute call that I'll push here at the end. So if you are ready to just try it out to see if it's going to work for you, if you're stuck because you want to do these things, but you can't get yourself to do these things, or you are doing these things, but for some reason it's not working, you just can't see what might be the problem, then head on that stressless call, and I will talk to you soon. Have a fabulous, fabulous day. Are you ready to lose weight, take control of food, and create the body and life of your dreams? Then it's time to check out my Stress Freedom Program. In this 12-week program, you'll find the confidence, tools, and support you need to finally get the results you've been looking for. Check it out at coaching.michellevilsek.com.